Hello, everyone. I am Leonna Brandao, New Vision Organization, and I am going to be talking today about raising the age of criminal responsibility to 25. We have mass incarceration in the U.S., as many of you know, and this is something I've been talking about for a long time. I just want everyone to know that in order to make change, we need to unite in solidarity to try to make changes. And even though we're working state by state, the governors are responsible for making the final decisions. We can work together in unity to make this happen around the country. When there's no consistency in a country, or when there's no consistency in a home with the family, everything is chaotic, everything is out of control. If we can work together in solidarity to try to make the changes to reflect every state in the same manner, because even though we are in different states, the problems are still the same. The way they operate, the penal system, is what changes. Because every state is different when it comes to the way they operate their facilities. But again, the problems are still the same. So one of the things I want to talk about is how we can come together. Now, I belong to a lot of groups on social media, and many of you listening are probably in those groups. And I encourage everyone to try to join these groups, these advocacy groups, even though they're in other states. Join them. Share the information so that they are aware of everything that's going negative in your state. And they will seem to relate because they have the same problems in their states. I do a lot of research. I've been doing research for years. And when I find things that I feel all of you can relate to or can use in your own fight for justice, I send them, I put them out there on those social media sites. And I put them out there with the groups that I belong to. Unfortunately, some groups, they won't do anything with these postings. As a matter of fact, they decline them, which is sad. Because if they have a Facebook page for human rights or civil rights violations, and they get it regardless of what state it's coming from, it's happening in their own state. Now, there are many people in prison who were victims before becoming offenders. And we have members of society that fail to realize that. All people incarcerated are judged in the worst way possible. We also have to realize that a lot of these prison officials, correctional officers, and even the commissioners of these facilities, of these prisons, of the Department of Corrections, even the commissioners, a lot of them conspire. A lot of them stick together. They call it the brotherhood. But we all know, we've all had people that we were so tight with, we never thought they'd turn their backs. But these things happen. Just like with these police officers, a lot of these correctional officers that have actually gotten caught doing something so terrible that they went to prison. Where was the brotherhood then? But yet they will stick together to cover up the injustices that go on behind those prison walls. There's a lot of prisoners that have committed suicide because we have high rates of suicide in the United States prisons. We have high rates of suicides, but we also know that a lot of these so-called suicides were not suicides at all. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of unfortunate murders behind those prison walls where the people who oversee can be held responsible. The sad thing about it is there's no oversight in these prisons around the country. And this is one of the things that I have been passionate about, is to get people from every state, advocates from every state, organizations from every state, to write to our legislative members, our lawmakers, to demand that they have oversight, and not internal, but independent oversight. Independent oversight consisting of lawyers, consisting of social workers, consisting of psychiatrists and psychologists, consisting of substance abuse counselors. People will never get out of prison if they continue to have people from the government working in the government, working for the government, and watching these people that have tried so hard to be released stay in prison because of people sticking together in government. And I want to bring something else out. There have been a lot of prisoners who have been in prison for years who have done no wrong since they've been in prison. They have struggled to do everything right. But yet, there are conspiracies going on with the government, with the people working in the prisons, with the governors. There have been conspiracies where these individuals have had their classification documents messed up so bad to make them look so bad and so violent, when many of them have not been violent at all. Many of them have struggled to take educational courses only to be denied. And many of them have been put in solitary confinement for some simple reasons, if not any at all. And while in solitary confinement, or now they call it the BAU, the Behavioral Assessment Unit, a lot of them are written up every single day. They're getting write-ups, disciplinary reports behind those walls by themselves. Disciplinary reports, bogus, with accusations of all sorts of things, even murder in some cases. And these people, when they get charged with all these, and they can't get a lawyer to help them, and they represent themselves at the hearing, in many cases, all of these charges are dropped. But what happens is it's not taken off of their record. And this is where we all need to stay together, stick together, and advocate and fight for justice. Because these people are getting things put on their dockets, their documents. These people are getting things put on their record that are not true. And even though, as I say, it was all dismissed, it's still on their record. So anyone seeing their record beyond that period of time is going to see that there's a murder charge. They may see that it was dismissed, but the thing is they're going to see that. And we have people in society that know there's been many wrongfully convicted. And yet those people have been judged. Those people in prison have been judged, even though they're wrongfully convicted and they come out. People are still going to be doubting them, knowing that they were released or exonerated because they were innocent. Even they have to go through a lot. There's no compensation for many that do come out. I know there's some that do come out and they do get compensated for all the years they spent from their youth. And this is why I want to talk about the age criminal responsibility. Right now, they have it up to 20, and they're looking at raising it to 21. So many psychiatrists and psychologists have confirmed that the criminal responsibility age can go all the way up to 30. But they say the majority is up to 25 and 26 years. A lot of these people, they after beyond high school, they go on to other schools. They go on to college. They're still struggling to find their way between high school, between young adult and adulthood. They're still struggling. They're trying to find their way. They're going to school. They're trying to work to pay for their education. A lot of pressure is put on these people. A lot of pressure is put on them, not just from the age of 20, 21, but the age of 22, 23, 24, 25. We have to look at this, and this is not going to change unless we, as advocates around the country, start writing letters to our legislative members, to our senators, even to Congress if it has to be. We have to write these letters to the media. We have to write these letters to other advocates, because if we don't, there's not going to be any changes. The United States of America has mass incarceration. Mass incarceration, the only country in the entire globe on this planet that have mass incarceration. Most of these people now, when they get sentenced for drug-related incidents, for mental health issues, for any crime at all, and many are also serving life and life without parole for drug-related. But a lot of these people, as soon as they get sentenced, right away they're getting sentenced to life and life without parole. This needs to change. The majority of people in prison today are serving life and life without parole sentences for drug-related or other related issues. But we can't keep allowing the prisons to use the prisons as an alternative to mental health issues or as an alternative to drug-related issues. They have, and they used to have, mental health institutions. They closed them all down throughout the country. They closed down all these mental health institutions. And they started using prisons as the only alternative. Is it about money? I will say a lot of these people working in the mental health field, I know their job isn't easy because they're dealing with some really serious cases. Schizophrenia, bipolar, PTSD, severe anxiety disorder issues, and so many other issues mentally related. So what do? Instead of putting these people in the prisons as the only alternative, stop giving the Department of Corrections so much money and put that money into reestablishing these institutions, mandatory training for the mental health workers, mandatory ongoing training for these mental health workers, increase their pay, make it possible for them to be able to accept this type of job because they're getting paid for what they're doing. The Department of Corrections keeps getting increases in their budget. They keep getting more and more and more money. And they contract out with the cheapest possible contracted medical providers out there. And this is why we're always hearing about these lawsuits against these contracted providers. And when they replace these providers with the new contracted provider, most of the people in the previous medical providing contracted agency stay on with the new ones. It's almost like a cycle. It's like a cycle, just like what's happening right now in this entire country. It's a cycle, and until it's broken, until someone or some people, lawmakers, can make the changes, this is going to continue and it's going to get worse. Violence in the street, for those prisoners who do get allowed, who do have the opportunity to be released, their minds are so messed up from the time they were in prison because of the treatment and the conditions they were subjected to. They're going to come out worse than they went in. We have a high recidivism rate, a higher recidivism rate than any other country. And these people, as I say, they come out and they go back in again because they mess up all over again. Or they come out and something else happens. We need to demand from our lawmakers that they stop going into the prisons, that they stop meeting with the prisoners. Not just those in general population, but those that are hidden away where no one can see them, no one can talk to them, to see what conditions they're in. And that's how our politicians are today. They go into the prisons, but they don't go to where they need to go to, and they don't really talk to prisoners individually. As I've mentioned so many times, Brandao from Amsterdam was a 27-year warden. He made it a point to speak with his prisoners. He made it a point to talk to them by first name. He gave them respect and he got respect back. Brandao is well known all over the country and other countries as well. He's been advocating for U.S. prisoners. He's been working with advocates in Texas and Massachusetts. He's been in the prisons in New York, Massachusetts, and elsewhere. This is what I call a respectable, dignified, excellent former warden who is also with the United Nations, with the International Red Cross, with the Ministry of Psychiatry Global. This is somebody that deserves respect. We are respecting the wrong people in this country, in this state. We are respecting the wrong people because our leaders, our government leaders, are more about publicity. They're more about looking good in front of the media than they are to be concerned with these people that are behind those prison walls suffering. When these prisoners have to fight on their own, to file their own civil suits, and they have nobody to help them, no lawyer to help, no one to intercede, no one to interact. When they try to work and send their documents to the courts, or the courts send the documents, the prison system, they're destroying their legal mail. They're withholding mail. They're tearing mail up. This is a known fact. As I always say, I've been doing this for 27 years. I know the inside just like I know the outside. And I'm very disappointed that people on the outside can't see it themselves and actually do something about it. I hear families of the incarcerated individuals. I hear them all the time whining, crying about the problem. But yet they're not doing anything about it, except feeling sorry for themselves. Prisoners are hurting. There's so many prisoners behind those walls, 2.3 million. Again, the highest population, the highest mass incarceration in any other country. And all we can do is advocates fight with one another. Families of incarcerated crying because they feel sorry for themselves. No one wants to write a letter. No one wants to pick up a phone, email, right from their home. These are family members that can be doing so much for their loved ones, and not only their loved ones, but others. To go on the internet and type in politicians fighting for prison reform, it's going to come out. They don't have to do HTTP or www. They don't have to do anything. Just like they're writing it on a piece of paper. And when they get these names, go on their websites and get their contact information. Get their email addresses or their telephone numbers or their snail mail address. Write to them, call them, email them. You don't have to be educated, which many of you probably think you do have to be. You don't have to be educated to pick up a phone and talk to these people. They're no different than you. They're human beings. The only difference is they have a title. And many have uniforms. And that's all they have. Many don't have the education. Many people get into these positions because of who they know. You find a lot of people in government with the same last names because they're relatives in different positions. And a lot of these people, these correctional officers or these prison officials, a lot of them, when they get fired for doing some wrong thing and they get accused of and found guilty of it, they get fired. They don't really get fired. What they get is transferred to other prisons and they work in the office. This is how they get over. And I hate to say it, but our legislative members, our politicians are being laughed at by the Department of Corrections around the country because so many of these politicians have caught them in lies and completely ignored it, bypassed it. And it's getting to the point now where they're always being told lies and they don't even realize it. Prisoners can be in solitary confinement, and advocates or family members can call these politicians and let them know that these people are in solitary for no reason. And the politicians will call the prison, and the prisons will say they're not in solitary, they're in general population. And right away, the politicians believe it. It's happened so many times. I've come up against this so many times in advocating for the incarcerated population. The department, we wonder why right now this country is in such a mess, chaos. When we cannot get our legislative members, our senators, our politicians to fight, to challenge, because they're too afraid to challenge, this is what happens. I hear so many complaints about the person that's leading the country now, but I don't see where any of our politicians have done anything to challenge it, to do anything about it. And I'm not just talking about Democrats, I'm talking about many of the Republicans. There's a cycle that needs to be broken. There's a population of people, even in our government, who got into politics at a very young age. And maybe they didn't make the right decisions either. Doctors, nurses. If any of you notice when you go into a hospital, when you have to go for medical care, a lot of times the medical providers now are in their 30s. I prefer to be seen by someone in there much older who has the experience and knowledge. But again, going back to these prisoners who committed their offenses under the age of 25, they deserve to have a second look, a second chance. And there's a lot of law firms, a lot of legal services, a lot of universities that have these clinics that could be helping them. But again, there's a lot of prisoners who are getting denied. There's a lot of prisoners getting denied the help. And if a family member tries to step in and make the calls, the family members are disrespected, the family members are disregarded, and the prisoner has a more difficult time getting the help they need. I have a lot of respect for people that are not so much about media, that are not so much about making themselves look good, that are not so much about getting funding to help their own relatives who may be in prison, or that help their own relatives that might be in a jam. When we do something on a voluntary basis, and we recruit people from the universities wanting to do their internships, wanting to gain experiences, wanting to help in some way, shape, or form, and even some that may have loved ones or friends that have loved ones inside as well. Because no one is exempt from mistakes or failures. No one. We've got so much crime. Right now, we are all living in a prison. We are all in this so-called free world, we're all living in a prison, but the prison we're living in doesn't have bars. Those people behind those bars are suffering in the prisons. They cannot move about. But on the outside, we're all in a prison. And there's only one of two things you can do. You can leave the country and find some peace and quiet and comfort in another country, or you can fight for change. You can fight for change. But in order to fight for change, you have to have courage. You have to have a desire, a passion for peace and justice. Now, recently, there have been a lot of exonerations in Massachusetts, and I'm sure beyond Massachusetts. But there's been a lot of there have been a lot of exonerations in Massachusetts, and I am so happy for them. And I hope that these people, when they come out, after their exoneration, I'm hoping that they will continue to fight for justice. Not only for those who are serving life and life without parole for wrongful convictions, but for those that they know of who have been abused while in prison. When incarcerated people are in prison for years and years and years, they make friends with other prisoners, and they find themselves, there's a lot of people behind those walls that are good and deserving of another chance. So I'm sure that they're going to work hard to help their other friends who are in for wrongful convictions. And those who are out after serving their lengthy time will help others who are being abused inside and that they know of. And advocates, I want to say something to all of you. I've had so many advocates throughout my years of advocacy work who have had conflict with one another and wanted me to get involved. And I've told them, and I'm going to tell everybody, I'm not like that. Because there's a day when those two or those three or all of these people that are in conflict with one another are going to speak again. They're going to be friends again. And anyone that sides with either or are going to be left on the outside. Another thing I want to bring out is that even in families, with siblings. Siblings will fight, they will get into it, but they still eventually come out of it because they love one another. So if we're going to be advocates and we're going to be working together in unity, in solidarity, to make positive changes in this country, and we're going to be working with incarcerated people who are depending on us, not on a advocate, but on all advocates who are going to be depending on legal services or lawyers. Whatever the case may be, we need to be strong for them. We need to be in solidarity at all times. And if we have a fight, let's try to get that over with the same day we have the argument. Let's not hold these grudges like 5-year-old kids, like we see on television all the time with these people leading our country. As they say, kiss and make up. What I'm saying is I've had it myself. In all these years I've been advocating, it's gotten to the point where I could give a shit, excuse my language, of what people think, how they feel. I'm about justice. And that's what I'm going to be doing, is fighting for justice. Not just for one, but for all. Not just for those who are wrongfully convicted, but those who have made one mistake in serving a life in life without parole. Those who were brought up in the ghettos, amongst drug-infested. Those who were kids when they were selling drugs for $8,000 or 8 years old, selling drugs for $25,000 a week, which has been on television. I used to watch all that. Sometimes the circumstances that these people are put in, these young kids, right up until 25, the circumstances they're put in, they cannot help themselves. Because if you notice, there are no role models anymore. There are no role models. You see adults with their pants down their behinds. You see them smoking their weed out in the streets. You see them talking all big and bad. Who are they trying to impress? They're trying to impress their peers, their one another. While these young kids are trying to find somebody to look up to. And when that doesn't happen, they find somebody that they can relate to. And when they can relate to other people like themselves, this is where the gangs come in. This is where the unity comes in. This is where they fight for one another. And unfortunately, rather than being a gang doing good out in the communities, they're being a gang with all that pain, all that frustration, all that anxiety, all that everything inside of them. And they're trying to release it. Too many people are dying because there's no alternatives. There's no role models. There's no justice. So I ask all of you to please hear what I'm saying, to please unite with one another in solidarity to bring about positive changes. The media, the podcast is open to anyone, anytime. And I've told others, I use my podcast a couple of times a week. Anybody that wants to take over some of those other days to talk about their passion, to talk about the justice that they want to see happen, to talk about anything, you're welcome to it. But do something. Do something, because people cannot just complain, because that gets old and it gets stale. There's so much we can do. Protesting is not the answer. Going out in the streets and protesting is not the answer. We never see success in that. We need to get to our legislative members, our lawmakers. We need to get to the media. The media should be going into the prisons. The media should be meeting with these prisoners, because they're so quick to write up stories, one-sided stories from what they hear from the union president or what they hear from the prison officials. Yet they cannot go to the source. They cannot go to the prisoners themselves and talk to these prisoners. Some media reporters have told me that they can't go in because they're not allowed. Well, if that's the case, the media is allowed to go anywhere they want. If they can go to other countries, I'm sure they can go to prisons in their own state or their own country. And if not, they need to go to they need to go to our lawmakers, and they need to ask them to write a bill, to pass a bill, allowing them to go into the prisons and meet with these prisoners. We're paying, our taxpayer dollars are going to all of these government officials doing absolutely nothing. So I'm asking my colleagues, my fellow advocates, to please start doing something. Start getting in contact with your legislative members, your senators, your Congress, your governor. Start getting in contact with them and get in contact with the media, because if the media gets enough calls, I'm sure that they're going to be interested in going beyond just interviewing the correctional officers, the prison officials, the union guards. I'm sure they're going to want to know more, because they're getting pressured to stop reporting one-sided stories. I hope all of you have learned something from this. Again, I welcome you all. I'm going to be on again Friday at 5 o'clock. I'm welcoming you all to come on anytime and talk about any of these issues. But for now, I ask that you pressure your legislative members, your senators, to raise the criminal age of responsibility to 25 and under, to please demand independent oversight in these prisons across the country, and change the parole board from government on the board to social workers, substance abuse counselors, lawyers, psychiatrists, psychologists, and try to get these people in there that know what to do with the prison system. And I'm surprised, again, American Psychological Association and the Department of Mental Health and other mental health organizations are not out there doing more talking about it. I am not a psychiatrist. I am a social worker. I am not a psychologist. And these people that are, and that are supposed to be so educated experts, they should be out talking to the media themselves about these unfortunate situations, about these people being put in prisons when they should be put in psychological or psychiatric institutions and long-term substance abuse facilities. This is what needs to be done. And it's a shame when people outside of the profession has to tell these people how to do it. Years ago, when I worked for social services, when children turned 5 years of age, all of a sudden it was mandated that the mothers go out to work, the parents go out to work. They never put into mind, they never completed this plan that they had put together, that the mother or the father or whomever was supposed to go out to work maybe didn't know how to drive, maybe didn't have a vehicle, maybe they had to be at work before the daycare opened. There's so many things. When you plan something, which our government seems to forget, when they make plans for all these things, they don't complete it. They do not complete it. They throw people in prison for life and life without parole, and unfortunately many on death row in some states. But what they do, again, is they deny them, while they're incarcerated, they deny them educational programs, vocational programs. They write them up on bogus reports. They do everything they can to prevent these people from ever getting out of prison, from ever getting out. And that is because they're making money off of prisoners. The contracted providers going in, the cheapest contracted providers, but the people that have the vending machines, that they are responsible for the vending machines. You can get a sandwich at McDonald's for $1 or $2, and you're paying $7 and $8 for sandwiches in the vending machines. And when the vending machines don't work, unless you have the telephone number to contact them to let them know that your money's been wasted, you won't get that money back. So all of these things are being contributed to the Department of Corrections around the country. Now they have these, what is it? Prison for profits. There's so many things. And again, I'm going to say, before I close, these are things that you need to look at. You can go on the internet and you can type in, just like you're writing on a piece of paper, you can type in prisons for profit. Why do they have prisons for profit? Why are these prisons trying to get so much money? What are these big corporations getting from these prisoners being incarcerated? Why are prisoners kept in solitary confinement? Why are they in for life or life without parole? Why are they being written up with bogus reports? And AI, I'll tell you, AI is good because AI can give you a lot of answers to a lot of questions that you may have, even as far as drugs being brought into the prisons. Prisoners being given drugs so that they can get so high they'll sell for the guards and other people in there. Think about these things. Because if we're not part of the solution, then we are definitely part of the problem. And I want to end this with that statement. We are part of the problem if we cannot be part of the solution. Thank you so much for listening in, and I hope you'll all be coming on or listening in on Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you.